Welcome back to What She Said Sports, everybody. It's Shanola Girl checking in. All right, it is the lunch. What is we call it? The lunch live stream that we had last year. We're back. All right, so it's a good day. We're talking about the Buffs today, but there's some things going on, right, that we want to talk about and get into. So welcome. We'll give everybody a chance to join us. And I was really just reading the latest about Coach Prime and Fran Brown. Remember that they got together last year and they were requesting a waiver for the two teams, Colorado Buffs and Syracuse, to play each other. Remember that last year? Well, I found my video from last year. We're going to take a look at that because they got back together again this year and made the request to the NCAA. So we're going to talk about that. Now, I have a question about one of the players at Colorado, JoJo. I'll go ahead and ask it now because he posted on social media that it was just a minor setback. And thank you, God. Now, I knew he was injured previously and had surgery and was doing well. So it said a minor setback for a major comeback. But what people were asking is, did he re-injure something, or was this just a a reference to he made it past the injury, made it past the surgery? If y'all have any thoughts or any information, let me know. So again, if you're just not joining us, we're talking about the Buffs today. So come on in. All right, I see some of the tribes starting to show up. So awesome. Hit the like button. Don't forget, we're less than 50 away from 7,000. And we back with our lunchtime stream, our luncheon stream. I think that's what I called it last year. So we get back on the trail again. Seems like we're done with vacation. We're done with traveling for now. So we're back. I'm gonna put some music on. We're just gonna vibe out a little bit and talk about some of these issues, including the NCAA. A lot of people had some things to say about their behavior. Now, one of the interesting things I heard probably about 2 days ago, I mentioned this last night, that somebody was suggested, I think from On3, or somebody was interviewed on On3, and they were saying that there needs to be someone put in charge of NCAA football. And I'm like, isn't that what all of these committees are for? So apparently there's a NCAA subcommittee that's, the decider over whether or not the spring games can happen. And since we're talking about the spring game today and the request made by Coach Prime and Fran Brown, I'm like, well, clearly there's already somebody in charge. So what is it people are really trying to get at by asking for even more oversight after we already have several oversight committees specifically dedicated to college football? We have a board of governors, you have these directors. I was on the NCAA's website just looking around to see who's on these committees. And all I saw was committee after committee after committee. And I just had to finally ask AI mode, who's on the subcommittee for oversight for NCAA Division I, right? And they said it's about 18 people, and they listed the names, of the different people. So there's already people in charge of college football. So what are people trying to get at by suggesting that one person needs to be in charge of college football? Help me understand. Is this about NIL? And I'm thinking that must be what it is. So let me know if you have any thoughts about that. Because there's already enough oversight. And a lot of the oversight that exists seems to be to suppress college football and suppress who has access, who has influence, and who the decision makers are. That's just what I get and gather from what I've seen of NCAA. And they've already been sued multiple times. And if you ask me, Coach Prime and Fran Brown, I applaud them for making the request for the second year in a row. And I think they should make the request every year, because we're going to discuss why they keep denying the request. All right. All right, everybody. All right, so let's go. Hey, Ramad. Who else is in here? Hey, Ramad. Hey, Elijah. All right, so we get ready to go. All right, so let's get into the video that I put together last year so we can pick up on what transpired, so you can have some kind of context, right? So you can have some context into what it is we're talking about. Let's go. He doesn't even understand why it doesn't already happen in football. He said, why? It's already happening in baseball. It's already happening in basketball.
Why is it that football is the only sport that has an inter-squad scrimmage in 2025 with NIL? I don't know. I don't know. But that's what he said. Dabo Sweeney said he likes the idea. Gundy, the coach from Oklahoma State, he likes the idea because Oklahoma moved out of this conference to a different conference, the SEC. So that split up their rivalry, which was called Bedlam. And that was a rivalry that they had. And once Oklahoma changed conferences, it kind of messed it up. So I think it was in 2024. So he's in favor of it happening. And there's some thoughts about how it should happen.
All right. So this was last year. To give you some context, this was last year, and we were talking about the NCAA's decision to deny the request for Colorado to play Syracuse football in a spring game in 2025. Now, if you notice on the screen, it was talking about it was denied because supposedly they asked too late, and it would give the schools some kind of unfair advantage. I don't know, but those were the reasons. And third, the kids would miss classes. So that was why it was denied last year. Those were the three reasons, right? So I looked up, I said, okay, let's look into this because the request went out again. They asked early. They made the request apparently, I think, in January this time. And the NCAA has denied Coach Prime and Fran Brown's very early, timely request for a spring game for the second year in a row. So I just shared with you why it was denied last year. Something about the kids missing classes, an unfair advantage, and they asked late. So 26, they asked early, and they still got denied. Now, on X, people feel like the NCAA will approve all sorts of things. Corruption is allowed, tampering is allowed, gambling is allowed. I'm like, y'all also advertise drinks like beer to underage students. So that play football, that's the whole topic right there, because you have to be 21 to drink, and everybody that plays college football is not 21. So that's the topic there. The NIL, they always want to suppress the NIL. Specifically, they whine about it for football. So they allow all sorts of things. They allow people to go back to school for 7 years, to go back to school for 9 years, to allow people who are already drafted by professional sports teams to come back to college. But they wouldn't let Trinidad get a 6-year, but gave Diego Pavia a 7. Those types of inconsistencies. There's all sorts of kind of inconsistencies from the rulings for the NCAA. But one thing they are consistent about is denying the request for 2 Black coaches that keep asking for a spring game. And as you heard me say last year, there were other coaches who weren't Black that thought it was a good idea, right? So when I was looking at the committee, it was like chaired by somebody from the University of Buffalo. It contains people from various schools. And I'm like, now, why did they deny this again, right? So I looked it up, and it said the NCAA denied a waiver request to allow the competition. They don't want it to happen. So they denied it, continuing its prohibition on outside team matchups during the spring. So it's saying that they're denying it because it's an outside matchup during the spring. It said NCAA Division I FBS Oversight Committee rejected the request on January 22nd, 2026 to allow for, now listen to this. They rejected the request January 22nd, 2026 to allow for a broader ongoing review of the college football calendar, marking the second consecutive year of the denial of the proposed matchup. So I shared with you some of the detailed reasons on why they denied it last year. And I looked to see what the verbiage said again. I'm going to share this with you so you can see it. It's the same reason. They keep talking about they were late last year and they didn't have time to look at the broader calendar. They were timely this year and they still didn't have time to look at the broader calendar. At this point, I would sue them. Twice is enough. I mean, you can keep asking and giving them a reason to say no, but twice is enough. This doesn't make any sense. If you denied it last year because you needed time to look at the calendar and they gave you time to look at the calendar, but you still need time to look at the calendar, you're not looking at the calendar. You're not even trying to decide if this is something that should be done. You're ignoring the fact that people think and that are involved in this sport that this is a good idea. And with all of the things you allow, why are you really denying it? Are you denying it because of who's asking? Or are you denying it because you just don't want two Black coaches to have influence over what's going on in college football, in Division I programs? What's the reason? Because if you keep giving the same reason that you denied it to have time to look at the broader calendar, you're not looking at the calendar. If you didn't look at it last year and you denied it again this year for the same reason, you're not looking at the calendar. So people are like, this is just ridiculous. This is just the NCAA flexing its little muscles to deny something when you think about all of the ridiculous things that they actually allow. When they talked about missed games, missed classes, do they care about missed classes during the regular season? Why are you worried about missed classes during the spring? These kids take classes online. That wasn't a valid reason in 25. I ain't hear it in 26. What are your thoughts about that? Let me know in the comments. So shout out to Coach Prime and Fran Brown for asking the question. Asking it again. I would ask again next year. I think the NCAA needs to get out of the way of college football. I think it's ridiculous for people to ask for more oversight with the already very prejudicial oversight that already exists. People need to remember something about the sport of football, which is why people are still whining about only football and NIL. Football, college football is founded in white supremacy. So you have two Black head coaches asking again early on time to play a spring game together, and it's no. It's not a far stretch to think that if two white coaches asked, they would do it. So do you think next year they should get two white coaches to ask and see what the answer is going to be? This is just like Trinidad Shambliss when he asked for his 6th year after they gave Diego a 7th because he's Black. And it just appears to be a very oppressive system. And for people to whine about NIL only for football, no other sport, again, it seems that there are people that are not happy that these majority Black players have the ability to make decisions for themselves and can make money off of their labor on the field. That's why it's always I asked this question last night. Why is it always college football that they're whining about? Why isn't it basketball? I mean, you would think it would be, right? So what is it? I don't know if basketball was rooted in white supremacy, but I do know football is. And there still seems to be a lot of people who feel like Coach Prime and Fran Brown should not have the ability to make decisions and be influential, let alone change makers in the sport that's rooted in white supremacy. So let me know what you think about the NCAA denying Coach Prime and Fran Brown's request for a 2nd year in a row to look at the damn calendar. So they can't play the spring game. They got to look at the calendar. All right. So moving right along. Hey y'all, I see y'all piling in. Hope y'all having a good lunch. So that's that on that topic. All right. So we got another topic. And it relates to Colorado. So last time we checked in on Colorado, I asked the question, is Livingston gone? Really couldn't. I was going to name the thumbnail going, gone. Is Livingston gone? Why? Because remember that he was interviewing with some NFL teams. So we have an update to share with you. So y'all know who Duke the Scoop is, with the Scoop is kind of plugged in with Colorado and some other teams. But he had some information and he shared a scoop that I thought was very helpful to what I wanted to discuss today, because I wanted to update on Livingston after he was interviewing with the Dallas Cowboys. So Duke provided some information and we're going to share it and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about why it matters where Livingston is. I think it's obvious. I think it should be obvious to people that, Livingston didn't seem all that inspired to win last year. And the dust up on the side with Coach Prime chasing him down the field was critical. It showed that things got to a tenuous boiling point that let you know that the things that were happening on the ground wasn't just about the quarterback. So Pat Schumer's gone, and I said I'm a little ease up on Colorado because why? One, Livingston is still there, and I said that was problematic. I also thought it was messy that Colorado gave Livingston a contract that runs through the end of next year after they were already seemingly trying to push Coach Prime out during the last season. Then we get into Colorado putting out this story about not having money, running off high school recruits. Then we get the Big 12 GM seemingly working with Colorado, making comments about, if Georgia and Alabama don't work for you, basically, what are you coming to Colorado for? And I'm like, time out, time out, time out. There's 16 schools in the Big 12. You represent the Big 12. Why are you picking on Colorado? So I've been kind of quiet on Colorado, hanging back and just kind of letting to see how things play out. I told y'all I felt like, and I'm not going to bite my tongue, that Brennan Marion was hired by the powers that be at Colorado to be Coach Prime's replacement. And that's how I feel. Brennan Marion interviewed with Colorado before, but they didn't hire him. And suddenly he fit. And people were like, well, Coach Prime picked him. I said, okay. When we saw Brennan Marion sitting with the outgoing GM, which was also a part of this whole sham system, to bring in somebody else to boot Coach Prime out, I felt like we had never saw that before. So it was like they were trying to get some kind of buy-in. And again, I'm looking at two black men being pit against each other. And it seems like that was part of their plan, right? So here we are. Lewis is still there. Schumer's gone. Brennan Marion's there doing great with the recruiting. Juju's still our quarterback, but we brought in somebody from Utah, which is quite interesting in itself. We still have Ponder on the ground, and then there's another kid. So we have 4 quarterbacks. I think last year we had 5. But what we're seeing, instead of CU putting out stories about money and the Big 12 picking on Colorado, we're seeing the alumni do it. We're seeing the alumni, people who have said it would be best if Coach Prime just quit, pick on Coach Prime. And I asked this question to myself earlier today. I said, is CU hiding behind its alum? What do I mean? Are they continuing on with this push of Coach Prime out the door, but using their alumni to do it? Do you really think it's coincidence that after the blowback from the Big 12 picking on Colorado out of the 16 schools that they are over, and Colorado put this story about the money, but then the truth came out about how much money was made? Yeah, that's the valid question, because it's continuing on with the alumni. If the alumni have a problem with Coach Prime, then why don't they find $44 million and buy him out? We talked about black coaches and them not wanting to give them their buyouts, not wanting to enrich them, but to use them to benefit the university. We already know how much money Coach Prime brought to Colorado. And it seemed like once Travis was gone, the person that they wanted clearly back into PWIs and away from HBCUs, they seemed like, all right, time for you to go. And we talked about their CU's relationship with other black coaches and how they did them dirty, including Mel Tucker, including the other 2 black quarterbacks, saying that head coaches saying that Coach Prime is the longest tenured black coach at Colorado. So the question is valid. After CU puts some things out there, after the Big 12 puts some things out there, after Brennan Marion comes in and he does the photo op with the outgoing GM and they bring in another GM, and they still have Livingston around there. And now the alumni are picking up where CU and the Big 12 left off with picking on Coach Prime. Is CU hiding behind their alum? Because the consensus is he should just quit. And we can't pick on him publicly, but we can send the alum to do it. That's a valid question. Not one that necessarily needs an answer, but it's food for thought. Because the same thing is happening. You're still picking on Coach Prime. Why? Is his time up? Why? If his time is up, why was it a limited amount of time for him to work at CU? Were you ever serious about that contract that you gave him? Why you just don't buy him out if you feel that way? These are all valid questions. So let's get into the Livingston conversation, because Livingston is giving me Kevin Stefanski. What do I mean by that? What did I say when we talked about Cleveland last year and how Stefanski should have been fired mid-season so they had a chance to win? I said, oh, they won't fire him because he must have work to do. So we're going to listen to Duke the Scoop give us an update about Livingston And is he still there, or is he still interviewing, or this, that, and the other? I'm hearing little rumblings that apparently he's supposedly not happy, or he's scared, or this, or that, and the other. But the point is, it seems like he shouldn't be there. But you can blame Colorado for creating this mess in the first place, because there was no justification to give Livingston that contract other than to make sure he was still there in Coach Prime, while Coach Prime is being pushed out to make him the next head coach. I always said that Colorado could have stopped the foolishness with Pat Schumer last year. I also asked, where the hell did Pat Schumer come from? Because we saw how certain NFL teams were trying to get Tommy Rees into college football, and I said that would be an absolute disaster. So let's take a look, listen to the scoop from Duke the Scoop.
Interviewing for the Cowboys job. Nothing came of that. The Cowboys made a couple hires, and it seemed as if, okay, Rob Livingston is just, there's no way he's going anywhere. Rob Livingston has been interviewing like hell. Rob Livingston is a very hot commodity. And people are going to say I'm crazy. People are going to say you don't know what you're talking about. People are going to say whatever. I'm telling you this ain't from no Colorado. I'm getting this from the league. I'm telling you, I know for a fact Rob Livingston has been interviewing. And I think people know it. If it's getting to me, it's out. Rob Livingston is a very hot commodity. And at this point, I think it's at least I don't know if Rob Livingston is going to be in Colorado next year. There's a chance he could be. There's a very real chance. But at this point, I would probably say the way I got it is probably about, I don't know, 60-40, 50-50, somewhere in there.
And so it's that 60-40, that 60-50. It's that part right there that Rob Livingston is a hot commodity. He's interviewing like crazy. He's a hot commodity. He's interviewing like crazy. Why haven't they hired him? That's where the Kevin Stefanski coming in. Does he have more work to do at CU before he gets hired? And next year, he's an immediate hire in the NFL because his job is done. There was a reason why Coach Prime chased him up the field, because Coach Prime felt like there was something he had going on that was untoward toward the program. But it was CU that locked him in and even gives him an incentive if he is still if he still works there by September of 2026. So Coach Prime had to survive Schumer. Now he has to survive Livingston. If Livingston is such a hot commodity, why hasn't he been hired? If he's such a hot commodity in the NFL and interviewing like crazy, why hasn't he been hired away? I go back to the contract that they gave him. They gave him a 2-year contract. And in year 1, we watched Schumer try to run off Coach Prime. I don't care what nobody said. That's what it was. Try to kill the program. And I said it was messy as hell for Colorado to give Livingston that contract. So now Coach Prime has to survive Livingston, who's a hot commodity in the NFL, the same NFL that tried to hurt Colorado's program, that didn't invite any players to the combine this year, who's still trying to hurt the program. That same NFL that made Coach Prime a scapegoat. He's such a hot commodity in the NFL. And what did I say? They're probably not going to hire him because he got a job to do, like Stefanski. And then after the job is done, then you can go. So the same play is being run against Shador. That's being run against Coach Prime. Setting them up to fail with people on their team. Shout out to Duke the Scoop for the scoop. Thank you so much for sharing that. I saw that Falcons helmet behind him. Did he play for the Falcons? He's just a fan. I always like to know people's relationship to the NFL because I feel like it does kind of shed some light on, some of their perspective. So if anybody know, let me know. But I thought it was great of him to share that because he had people on the inside that was giving him that scoop and he shared it with the public. And my take from what she said, sports, not his. This is just my take. I just took the scoop and I was already thinking about if Livingston was interviewed with the NFL, what happened? So apparently Duke is saying he's still interviewing like crazy, that he's the hot commodity. And I'm like, so why isn't he gone yet? They took Pecco away, right? Pecco got hired and he's not even a coordinator. They clearly don't like the Colorado program on the NFL side. So Why haven't they hired him if he's hiring like crazy? Why is he still there? What does he have to do before he gets picked back up? These are all valid questions. I would love to know the answer to your questions. To those questions, because I feel like he's still there because, like Stefanski was still left to linger in the season and destroy it. That was the job. That he got the contract through the end of 2026 because there was a job to do. And if he leaves, who's going to do that job? And we ain't talking about defensive coordinator. We're talking about take down CU's program. But Coach Prime has made it clear that he clearly can see what's going on. He also posted early on that he's old school, not an old fool. So it can't be comfortable for Livingston to be around there because everybody knows. And you might be the last lone horse, maybe. I hope Marion is not who they feel like can take it over. And maybe they don't think that, because if they did, Livingston would be gone. Who do y'all think should be the next defensive coordinator? Let me know your thoughts. All right, so I'm going to head over to the comments. This is a lunch live stream, so we're not going to be 2 hours. We'll save that for tonight. But I'm getting ready to head over to the comments because I want to see what y'all think about Livingston and why he's still there if he's such a hot commodity, if he's interviewing like crazy. I'm not saying I doubt the story, the scoop. Oh, I absolutely believe it. I just want to know, why is he lingering? Yeah. All right, so let's see. Hey, Elijah, how you doing? Thank you, Ramont. How you doing? A learning lunch. All right, I was going to call it lunch and learn, but I was going to call it that, lunch and learn. So thank you so much. It said NCAA is always getting sued. I see why, because they oppressive. They oppressive, especially where it comes to football. It seems like football is something that the NCAA seems to love to suppress. And I have to ask if the players were not majority black, would this be happening? I don't think so. I actually don't believe that they would be studying the calendar for 2 years in a row if the coaches that asked for the spring game were white. I also think if some sponsors come along, would that make them change? Maybe if the sponsors, can push from the outside, hey, we want to get this done because this is an opportunity for us. Why hasn't that happened? Is it because of who's asking? This is valid perspective. People need to stop asking, like, college football, professional football has not been rooted in white supremacy. And there are a lot of people who refuse to move on from their roots and want to treat people like they are in roots. I think it's foolish to do that. You'll never get change if you keep pretending it's not racism involved. Salute. How you doing? Thank you, Ramon. It said good morning. I hit the like button, hyped you up. Yay! Thank you so much. Find 2 white coaches to make the request and see what happens. Right. I say the same thing. Or what about some sponsors? So the sponsors that sponsor people in the teams in the season, like I was talking to somebody on X, and I was like, why are they sponsoring? Why do they have beer sponsors at college football games? And they were like, because they make money. I'm like, but everybody that's playing and that's there is not under 21. So maybe they're saying it was like if you go to a pro game, but I'm like, all of the players are over 21 in the NFL. So that's different. I guess I'm just shocked to see beer sponsors at a college event. I don't know. I just think that everybody's not 21. So if the drinking age is 21, why would you promote that? But they can do that, right? They can have all these kind of sponsors and they can take all this money from sponsors. But I haven't heard any sponsors talk about, well, hey, let's talk to the NCAA and see if we can get on the spring game. They want to put all the patches. Today was a story about Georgia's identified who they patch they wearing. They can make all of this money for advertising. But this is the one area the NCAA doesn't want to expand to make money. Interesting. I don't think that that's what it is. I think it's because of who's asking. So I agree with by design, get 2 white coaches to do it or some sponsors to push it up. Because they just don't want Coach Prime and Fran Brown to have the influence and be successful in Division I football. Because they still holding on to their racist roots. It's that they just don't want Coach Prime to be popular and the start of something beautiful. Right. And here's the thing. I've always maintained that Colorado have way too much power to just sit by and let some of the things happen. Like Colorado should have held the NFL responsible for how they treated the program and how they are discriminating against the program. They also should hold the Big 12 accountable for the Big 12 commissioner basically trying to run off and did high school recruits by saying ain't no point in coming to Colorado. 16 schools? Really? If you don't make it at Georgia and Alabama. That was so ignorant. So I'm happy to see that Colorado's still getting transfers to come in, right? And I don't think it's ever been a problem of putting together a winning squad for Coach Prime. Obviously, he did that before he got there. I think the problem is people never looked at Colorado as the enemy. CU, and they need to. You would be foolish not to. The Big 12, the enemy. They showed you who they were. And that tell you how desperate they are to get him out, which is why I ask, are they hiding, CU hiding behind their alum? And it has to be a very tough spot for Coach Prime to be in, that the people that he worked for are trying to push him out. But then that's exactly what Shador went through. So now he's going through what his own son was going through, or they both were going through it at the same time. And I keep telling y'all, they don't normally stop. They just change the way they try to push you out. So if CU wanted that spring game to happen, they got enough power in Regents that they could get it done. Look at the valuation of this school and how Coach Prime being there with it has boosted this school's prominence and people interested in the school. They have power. It said they just don't want Coach Prime to be. I agree. And now we need to look at CU as the nemesis, not just the coordinators, because the coordinators couldn't have done the things they did to the program. And I mean Pat Schumer and the one before him without CU. They are the last stop in accountability. Just like with the refs. I'm like, why CU don't get on and the Big 12 don't get on the NCAA with these damn refs? I said that in year 1 and year 2. Now you see in year 3 who the problem is. It said they are denying it because they didn't come up with it. Right. And I'm shocked that no sponsors aren't pushing back. Hey, this is a business opportunity. See, this is what this is supposed to be about, right? Football is a business. And that's what they tell these kids. It's a business. They also tell these kids, do work hard, do your best, and you can make it. But they don't tell these kids about you could be working for the enemy and how it is you need to prepare for that. That's a lesson. That's the whole goddamn course. When you working for the enemy that's trying to destroy you, no matter how hard you work, you're going to have to deal with that situation until you're no longer there. That's what these kids need to be learning in college. They're not timeless. We want to talk about adversity. The adversity that they have is their own goddamn school is the goddamn enemy. And so is the governing body, such as the NCAA, which is why they keep getting sued. And so is some of their damn coaches and some of their coordinators. And yeah, it don't matter if it's race or religion or creed or color. The point is, they the enemy. And they sold these kids a lie and talked about fairness in the university, but the university clearly has a problem with Black coaches. And Coach Prime clearly has overstayed what they thought was his tenure, but they played in his face and gave him this long-term contract, but they don't want to see it through. And why is that? Because you never meant it in the first place, just like the Cleveland Browns never meant. They were not genuine about when they pre-drafted with Shador extensively. They're doing the same thing to Coach Prime that they did to Shador. And they scapegoated them both. And CU is a part of it, and we're seeing that. Sorry, but the NCAA, but the Pandora's box is already open. This is 2026, not 1996. I totally agree. I just totally agree. It's just shameful. It says CU is hiding behind the alumni. I think so. I thought about it. And when I was thinking about Livingston, and then I was listening to Duke the Scoop and listen to him talk about how Livingston is a hot commodity and highly sought after. I'm like, so why is he still there? Because Petco gone. And then Stefanski just comes right on up. The same reason why he was allowed to stay, because he had a job to do. So hiding behind, because see, you don't have to allow that. You think they would treasure Coach Prime, right? I mean, they seemingly did, but they were pretending until Travis and Shadua were gone, or Travis was gone. No justification for Livingston contract extension. Absolutely. I don't even know why he would even have that. He didn't do that work. Those students did that work, right? So Coach Prime is in a place that he probably is familiar with. Yes, it's adversity. Hopefully he knows it's due to racism. I think he does, because when he talked about the death threats, I wondered how many were coming from CU. I did. You should. If there were 5 a day, at least one with people hiding that they're hiding behind to push him out. It's not a coincidence all of these alum are just coming out the woodworks. Wasn't it an alum that said, what? The best case scenario is that he should just quit. And wasn't that an alum that wanted to work there? You can't even trust the alum? Really? And where are the rest of the alum who don't agree with this? Why are they silent? You see? Why is the school silent? We don't agree with this. This is our alumni. We don't have nothing to do with this. We appreciate Coach Prime. Because they don't. They lured him there to get Travis back to a PWI. And when that was done, he could go, which meant the contract was playing in his face. And now they don't want to pay up and buy out. They want him to quit and walk away empty-handed. So that's where we are on those fronts. I think, let's see, did I have another topic? And that might actually be it. So let's see. I had a list of things I wanted to talk about. Let's see what's on my list. All right. So I think we got everybody. I think JoJo just put out there that he was, so this is just in summary. JoJo put out there, if you're just not joining us, that he thanked God for the journey, that it was just a minor setback. And we believe that he was speaking about when he was injured previously and had surgery. So we think we just gonna leave that right there. We think that he was just reflecting that he's not injured again. I'm excited to see that kid ball out, right? Because you can tell he's talented. You can tell he's really talented. But the way they ran the offense last year, it seemed like they were suppressing the whole goddamn wide receiver core, which kind of leads to my opinion on why we lost to Marion. But that's what I think. And I did ask y'all, which CU games are y'all most excited about? Now, for me, obviously, it's Georgia Tech for obvious reasons. But also, too, it's going to be the games that we play against, like where our former players went. Colorado football. Let me look. Schedule. The players that we lost, like Omarion, anybody that we play like that, it's going to be interesting. So we play Oklahoma State first. Is that basketball? I think that's basketball. It says football, but it looks like basketball to me. I don't think we played them first. And we lost they lost their coach too. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking for their football schedule. Here it is right here. Georgia Tech is first, September 3rd. Oh, word on the internet is that game was moved to Thursday to allow for a primetime spot to feature it. So that's good, right? So Coach Prime, still drawing in the crowds. That's why the thumbnail says it's still primetime in Boulder. I mean, I don't care who they worked, who they brought there. I don't care who they should have gave a contract to that's still there that need to get the hell on. It's still primetime in Boulder. And the fans respect Coach Prime. And that's what CU gonna need to get it together. Before they look like the ugly duckling in this situation. Before they look like they were always the problem in this situation. Before they expose themselves in the same manner that the Cleveland Browns have been exposed. Before the fans become disgruntled with the university. Like fans are already disgruntled with the Cleveland Browns. We talked about how the Cleveland Browns and the Colorado Buffs were, they look identical, like identical twins. And people looked at the relationship between who? Schumer and Stefanski. Well, both of them are gone. And in Cleveland, you're still seeing nefarious behavior. And in Colorado, we're just seeing some things. And so it makes me ask the question, is CU hiding behind their alumni? The way the Browns were hiding behind Stefanski. It's a valid question. So we're going to find out. What is this, year 4 for Coach Prime? We will find out. So hopefully Brendan Marion and Coach Prime are not being pit against each other by the university because they're black men. The way we see the players pit against each other in the NFL. That's my hope. All right, so back to the schedule. So obviously I'm excited for Georgia Tech. It's a primetime game now, September 3rd. Then we play Weber State. I've never heard of this school, but it's in Boulder. The game is in Boulder, so I don't know much. People think it's going to be an easy game, but sometimes those easy games are setups. Then we play Northwestern. That should be interesting. We've never played them. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. And Baylor. Of course, I want to see Baylor. Of course, I want to see Baylor. The last time we saw Baylor, that was Shadour's legendary game. That's where he submitted his legacy at CU. So I'm definitely excited for Baylor. Texas Tech, yeah. This time they play in Boulder, so no more tortillas on the field. So I'm excited for that. Then Utah. Utah's always a good rivalry. And Oklahoma State, it'll be fine. They have a new coach. We'll have to see what happens there. Then there's Kansas State. Kansas State is always a good time. You always have to keep your head on the swivel and look to be cheated. And Arizona State. I'm excited about Arizona State because I think that's where Omarion went. So I want to see how that works out. Now, Kansas State has, what's his name? Avery Johnson. This might be his last year coming up. So I want to see Avery versus Juju to see how that goes. And then we have U of H. Okay, so we play U of H November 14th, this time in Boulder. And then Cincinnati, we play them again. Okay, we play Cincinnati in Ohio. I think we played them in Ohio last time. And then UCF. Oh, we play UCF again. Okay. November 28th. What's that? Right around Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving. And that's going to be in Colorado this time. And then there's the Big 12 championship game. Hopefully Colorado is in it. So I'll do a breakdown of the schedule and analyze it and tell y'all how many games I think we'll win like we did last year. And I also hope this year that we don't have any quarterback carousel happening. I'm hoping the kid from Utah was not brought in to throw Juju off, to play in his face. I would hope not. And like I said, I'm hoping that Brendan Marion and Coach Prime have a great professional working relationship and not being pit against each other by certain people who are maybe close to the program, but not involved in the program. Same thing with the quarterbacks. That Juju's not being pit against anybody, right? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because we're going to have to watch for that. All right, y'all. So we're going to get out of here. It said another great show. Thank you so much. It said right after that post alum called him stupid. The AD should have released a statement. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Colorado was too quiet. They were too quiet on the first athletic director. No, what is it? The first OC. They were too quiet on Schumer's behavior. They gave Livingston that contract before they settled Coach Prime. That was wrong. And then they too quiet on their alum. So they look like the problem. CU and the owner of the Browns are starting to emerge and come and be seen in through the bushes because the bushes being cleared out the way. You the problem. And maybe this speaks to how they treated their other black coaches. Maybe that's where this goes. Maybe that's what the dots connect to. Just like we now see in Cleveland, how Cleveland treated Shador, we now see the mistreatment of other black quarterbacks. See, that's what I mean by it's the same thing. And once again, CU and Colorado looking like twins. And that should not be the case. So the mistreatment towards Coach Prime, is that typical for black quarterbacks to experience mistreatment by CU? This is a valid question. And thank you so much for that. It said the Big 12 GM needs to stop hating against Coach Prime in Colorado. The Big 12 gets erased. Just ask the Pac-12. I totally agree with that. Does Livingston have a job in NFL yet? The combine is right up the street. That's the interesting point. Well, we'll see if he gets one. We'll see if he gets one, because if he's such a high commodity, and I don't doubt what Duke is saying at all, I'm just saying, thank you for that. It shows, that what's going on behind the scenes. But my question is, and I would ask Duke if I knew him, I would say, so why do you think he still works there if he's such a hot commodity? So Duke, if you see this, thank you for sharing the scoop that Livingston is a hot commodity, interview like crazy. My question to you is, why do you think he hasn't been hired away yet since he's such a hot commodity? Questions that need answers. Let's see what happens. All right, so we're going to get out of here. This was our Lunch and Learn. And we'll be back tonight at 10:35. So if y'all want to continue the conversation in the comments once the video uploads or the live stream, I'll see y'all there. All right, see y'all tonight at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on What She Said Sports. Have a good one, everybody.